Hello, thank you for joining us. This is the Friendly Reminder podcast. It's your weekly friendly reminder of what's going on around the world, in our lives, and everything in between. My name is Gus, and once again, I'll be your host for the evening. It is September the 3rd. Can you guys believe it? It's September already. And I'm being joined with, as always, my two dearest friends. Sam, how are you today?
Woo! You got to me first. In your face, Daniel. I'm
Yeah.
doing good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. And last but not least, Daniel, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad you got to me second because I wanted to cut in here and talk about how I don't like the name Friendly Reminder. I think we should change. I'm just kidding.
We're 10 episodes deep, so you had
it's
your
too
chance.
late.
Yeah,
we have our brand now.
I mean, we had like two workshops there that you may have missed, a couple of meetings. It's a little.
To be fair, every name that I submitted had cuss words in it.
Look, yeah, we're not going to do the fuckcast, okay? I know you love the fuckcast. This is not the fuckcast. It's Friendly Reminder. You can start the fuckcast, but I'll be a guest.
Friendly Reminder : the fuckcast.
Friendly
the
Reminder.
Fuckcast will be our special episode. The Fuckcast will be election night.
That'll be after. The Friendly Reminder will turn into the Fuckcast after the election.
If he wins, yeah.
And
if Joe Biden wins, we'll just stop doing the show, probably.
Yeah. We're going to talk. It's going to be like the Ways and Means Committee show where we just talk about whatever bill was passed through that committee.
Oh, my God.
It's going to be fun. I hope that's our future. So we are going to get started today, guys. But before we go on to our main topic, we very much want to mention that, shortly after we finished recording last Friday, almost moments after we finished recording, we were informed of the very tragic and very sad passing of Chadwick Boseman. He's a prolific actor that has played various roles, including playing several Black history icons such as Jackie Robinson in 42 and Thurgood Marshall in Marshall. But inarguably, his most famous role is playing King T'Challa and the Black Panther in Black Panther, as well as all the other Marvel Cinematic Universe movies he was in. It was a shocking loss. He kept this illness, colon cancer, hidden from the public. He was dealing with it for 4 years before he sadly succumbed to the illness, and it took all of us by surprise. He was 42. Talking about celebrity deaths can be a little bit difficult sometimes because it's obviously an individual that we never met, we never got to personally know, but we enjoyed his work. We took in his cinematic career, and for a lot of people, especially young African American kids, this was their first time seeing a superhero in the big screen that looked like them, and that's important, and that means a lot, and it's a tough loss, and we're still kind of processing it to this day. But I did want to take some time to mention it, and I kind of wanted to ask you guys, like, how did you feel after finding out about the news? Daniel, we'll start with you.
It hit me pretty hard for a lot of the reasons you talk about, and it just seemed like, on top of everything going on in 2020, this extremely talented actor who you got the sense every time you saw him in a movie, you saw not only the roles that he did, but you thought about the how much potential he had and what the future was going to be like for him. But his catalog is small but remarkably a lot of hits. Black Panther is probably my favorite solo Marvel movie, I think, and his character. I love his character in the other movies too. So it's difficult, and it is this year in particular, with the shocking number of deaths of African Americans from COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement. It seems almost I'm not even sure how to put it. Maybe symbolic in some ways of the tragedy that's befalling this community at this time.
Yeah, it
It's
feels
very
even.
it feels bigger than than another celebrity death, I think, and then, because it was just so sudden and shocking, and this talented actor you thought was going to have a really promising career.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, it feels even cruel, honestly, just like kind of kicking us when we're already down, to lose somebody with, as you mentioned, so much potential, that meant so much to many people. Sam, what about you? What did you feel when you found out the news?
I mean, I felt very similar. I still haven't seen Black Panther. I probably will soon. But the one movie that I did see where he was in was 42, and he took on that role completely. Like when I watched the movie, I didn't see him as the actor. I saw him as the character he was portraying. And I think it's really hard for actors to do that. Or at least I mean I've only seen a few actors that could do that, but it was shocking. I mean it was surprising all of a sudden kind of thing.
You go back now knowing what you know, and you look at his filmography and you wonder, like, how did he do it? I mean, how was he able to be in all those movies and still have to deal with must be incredible pain and incredible hardship to just go about your life, just your regular life, and just finish your day, but to also still be doing the films that he did and putting in the work that he did. And there's been some interviews now that, if you go back to, he was very much alluding to. And just going back to those interviews, it's heartbreaking to essentially see him very subtly say what he was going through and what we now know. So yeah, it's hard. I imagine he was going to be in at least our cinematic lives, for decades to come, with Black Panther 2, 3, whatever, going forward. Obviously, now's not the time to wonder what Marvel or Disney is going to do. Right now, it's just time to grieve. But it is tragic to know that's just not going to happen anymore. So to Mr. Chadwick Boseman, we may you rest in power, and thank you for your work. But let's move on to our next topic. So we're post Republican convention. We had the very tragic events that unfolded in Kenosha that we discussed last week, and this week, I don't want to say it's been a quiet week. I don't think there's such a thing anymore in 2020, but there's been a little bit of a lull, maybe a bit of a reflection going on, where we take in the convention and we take in everything that occurred in Kenosha, and we try to predict how it's going to affect the race and what it means to both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So there's been a lot of pundits that decided to turn on their, and I'm being sarcastic here, but their galaxy brain to try to tell us how exactly this race may transpire. And it's been interesting because one of the main arguments that's been coming out, or one of the main narratives that have occurred over the last couple of days, coming from either center right or the moderate lane, is that regarding these riots, protests, violence in the street, it is now time for Joe Biden to go to the center, and go to the moderate
It's
lane.
time for Biden to take responsibility for what he's doing, for all the havoc that he's causing.
Yeah, for him to quell the unrest as a president of the United States, I guess. But essentially, it's been a call for him to have what these pundits quote as his sister soldier moment, which is quite of an outdated term. And I'm just going to describe it real quick. What a sister soldier moment refers to is a reference to an event that happened back in 1992, when then candidate Bill Clinton criticized rapper, activist, MC Sister Soldier for some controversial comments she made about white people, including one in her song that says, "If there's such a good thing as a white person, I've never met her or ever met them." And he used that as a way to criticize both her as well as distancing himself from Jesse Jackson and then the Rainbow Coalition, which a lot of pundits see, and what the Sister Soldier moment is referred to is an attempt to resist the extremes of your ideology or of your party and go to the center, go to the moderate lane and reach out to the people either on the center right or in the middle. There's been other examples of that, like the Obama speech after his pastor said the words that he said. And apparently that's where we are right now, which there's two things I myself want to mention. And I'm not the first one to mention, but I do think it bears repeating on this podcast. Isn't the Joe Biden candidacy and the Biden-Kamala Harris candidacy essentially on its own a Sister Soldier moment? Like, isn't their whole thing a play to the moderate lane?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a giant pull to the right. I think it's, I mean, I guess the criticism, taking it at sort of its strongest, it's the criticism is he's not being sufficiently critical of the sort of rioting, which now he very much is. I mean, he's traveling to Kenosha. He has speeches. He's been yes, he has been condemning it for months, and now he's made it a sort of almost central part of his campaign. He has a large ad buy where he's talking about how rioting and protesting aren't so rioting is not the same as protesting, blah blah blah. So I mean, I don't know what these pundits want, honestly. Like, they're getting it really is, I think it is really just a thinly veiled way to set up an excuse to vote for Trump eventually. Or, eventually they're going to say, yeah, he didn't condemn it enough. And I don't know if you read the Bret Stephens column, but he actually referred to this NPR story and this book that was reviewed on NPR called, like, In Defense of Looting or something. Yeah. Or maybe the article was called In Defense of Looting. And it was like, it was a kind of a fluffy NPR piece on this book this person wrote about, looting being sort of, it wasn't that controversial. It was how looting was sort of the violent expression against an oppressive society and a sense of powerlessness and voicelessness. Not, in my opinion, not very controversial stuff. I'm not saying looting is great, or I'm not, supporting looting or anything like that. But the Bret Stephens article, it was so whiny. It was like, so many of my friends forwarded me this article, and eventually they're probably going to vote for Trump. They don't like him, but this is just too much. And it was like this NPR article on, right. And it just kind of cracked me up, because now it's this scion of everything is canceled culture, and here he is complaining about what's on NPR and making it influence how he's going to vote for president. And it's honestly, I think it's just a bunch of bullshit. I think it's them making up excuses. Eventually they're gonna. I think there's two aspects of it, though. I do think that Biden, what he's doing is probably the smart thing to do, because I do think things like disorder, violence can scare swing voters, or the people
right.
that he's aiming for in these swing states. So I think there's the pundit part of it is just BS, but I think Biden reaching out to the voters directly and making sure that they're not buying the absolute bullshit Republican line that Joe Biden is, wears a little hat that says Antifa on it or something. It's absolutely ludicrous, but it's good that Biden feels like he wants to correct the record on that.
How more modern can Joe Biden get, is my question.
Yeah, and that's really that is the question. Like, when you read these kinds of articles, it's not like Joe Biden is pivoting right now. He's had a history of denouncing the riots. He's had a history of saying he won't defund the police. In fact, he thinks they perhaps need more resources, and he's going to fund them more. Which that's where
Well, they have to lie about it. You heard about that? Who was it? Louis Gohmert? Was it Louis Gohmert? Or no, it was Steve Scalise. He edited a video of Addie Barkin to make it sound like Joe Biden was agreeing that he would defund the police. Addie Barkin has ALS and he speaks with like a computerized voice. This politician, Steve Scalise, literally edited this disabled guy's computerized voice to make it sound like Joe Biden was agreeing with something he wasn't.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
That's how far that these people would go to portray Biden as some sort of radical.
I mean, it didn't stop them in 2016. Why should it stop them now?
But, you know, specifically on these editorials that you see from Bret Stephens and also Andrew Sullivan was another individual that wrote an article basically with this statement that he needs this kind of moment. What exactly is it that they want? Because in the Andrew Sullivan moment, he said, like, yes, Joe Biden, or the Andrew Sullivan article said, like, yeah, Joe Biden has condemned the riots, but with caveats, and he needs to do it without them. But, like, what does he mean? Like, what else do you do other than say, no, I don't want violence on the streets. I'm here to assure, to unify the nation. I will condemn any violence, whether it's on the left or it's on the right. That's it, right? You don't go out and you don't have to mention Antifa. You don't have to call out specific people. Every time I look at this article and they talk about order, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but to me, it's like they're okay with everything that Donald Trump has been doing. They would just rather have somebody that can do that same thing, but go back to not saying the quiet parts out loud anymore.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Want Donald Trump. They want like a more polite version of Trump.
Right.
Well, it's either. I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's either going to be Trump or Biden, and Biden. I mean,
Gus was trying to say is I think that these people want a Republican, and they really want something almost like Trump, but like maybe like slightly less gross and weird and stupid.
Yeah.
But once again, like, I mean, are they just not realizing that Trump is president and he's
Yeah, they think they can mold Joe Biden into being the Republican candidate that they seek because
Joe Biden has said that he reads David Brooks, which probably means he reads Bret Stephens, which probably means he read Bret Stephens' stupid column.
It's important to mention that like Joe Biden is the closest the Democrats put out there to a Republican that we have. Like, I don't think there's, I mean, maybe Tulsi Gabbard. Like, I don't know. There's nobody there that's as close in terms of appealing to moderate voters. This is as good as they're going to get. With
Howard Schultz, Bloomberg, not really.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bloomberg and Howard Schultz are not that more moderate than Joe Biden. At least not in the primary. Like you could argue that Joe Biden has moved a little bit towards the left after the coronavirus, but it's really, I appreciate him doing that, but he's certainly not. He has never moved from his moderate credentials, and he's shown pride. Regarding that, he is a very prideful moderate, and he's not going to buck on that. So
yeah. But do you consider him being a moderate, even though he's like for gay marriage?
I mean, I think you can be a moderate and be for gay marriage. I don't think. I mean, when we refer to moderation, we're looking at economic issues, at social justice issues, at racial issues, which.
Gus, I mean, Sam, he does bring up a point that Biden was one of the first people to publicly, and that was more of the fact that the Democrats were just woefully behind on the gay marriage issue. But yeah, I think Biden was the first person to publicly in the Obama administration come out for gay marriage, or he kind of pushed Obama towards it. I don't know if that makes him. I guess what we're talking about now is moderate in terms of the field of candidates, right? Biden might say that he's, just like Clinton said in 2016, the most progressive candidate. At the moment he's selling himself to Republicans, so he doesn't do that, but he could, I guess, conceivably. I don't know. He certainly doesn't seem to be selling himself that way.
No, and even then, like that's kind of the point. Like, he is not selling himself that way. He's had a history of presenting himself as this moderate, and yet you're still seeing these editorials come out where it's simply not enough. So you have to wonder, like, what again, as I said, like, did you, maybe these pundits already have their guy? It sounds like it. It sounds like what you want is the same thing that has already occurred on the streets right now, which is sending law enforcement into the streets to, with force, quell the violence. Right? Not actually understand where some of these issues are originating. Quell it with force, end it now, and then the people that were previously okay with the law and order that was already in place, they can go about their lives, and the people that continue to suffer under that law and order continue to suffer. Like, there is no meaningful change. These people don't want any kind of meaningful change or progress. They want just to everybody be under the same thumb, because that is a kind of a law and order that has worked out for them. And that's what Donald Trump has been promising, more or less.
The Sister Soldier moment is very much like a soul of white America screaming out and saying, please protect us from the not necessarily like all the minorities, but like the radicals, right? Protect us from the black radicals, or the notion of black liberation. I don't know. That's what it symbolically sort of represents. And I think, what pundits do we see? Sullivan and Brett Stevens, the two most weird on race guys that are currently out there in sort of the mainstream right now. I don't know if you know about their sort of weirdness about race, but you should look it up. But I'm not surprised that they're the ones that are calling for Biden to sort of reach out and bash on somebody who they can symbolically put up as sort of the radical head of Black Lives Matter or head of Antifa. Do they suggest anybody, by the way, or do they just suggest he condemn like Black Lives Matter? And
no, they weren't advocating anybody else. They were saying this is the moment where Joe Biden needs to do this, because that'll make him the moment if he does not do it, then this is the moment he loses the election.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not a political strategist. There hasn't been a whole lot of evidence, at least from the most recent polls, that Joe Biden's current stance has lost him any grounds in like Wisconsin, for example. We have more to see on that front. There's still a lot of polling to be done, and there's still 2 months until the election. But I feel like they're using politicals, or like what they think is a wise political strategy to project their own anxieties, which is they look at Black Lives Matter, they look at some of the unrest, and somehow they project that Joe Biden is under their thumb, and he needs to, even though there's never been an indication of that, and somehow Joe Biden needs to address an issue that doesn't exist, or he's already addressed multiple times, which is he's Joe Biden. He's the same Joe Biden.
It's so stupid. He's not the president. He's not. Nobody on the fucking streets gives a fuck about Joe Biden. I'm just going to be honest. Like, really, do you think that the people out there are really like avid Joe Biden supporters? A lot of them are probably going to vote for Joe Biden, but not because they like love Joe Biden or something.
Yeah. Like Black Lives Matter and some of the individuals on the streets, like, it goes both ways. Like, they do not influence Joe Biden. They are not members in the dark shadows puppeteering Joe Biden. And likewise, Joe Biden does not control them. Like, Joe Biden can give all the speeches he wants. They're not all of a sudden going to stop. What they want is justice. And justice does not end in Joe Biden's presidency.
I do think, just to qualify that though, I do think And I think we talked about this a little while ago. If Biden wins, I do think some of the force of some of these protests is going to drop out. Not because I think Biden is suddenly going to give a lot of people what they want, but I just think there'll be a little. It's just harder to get people to focus when you don't have the giant.
Yeah, but
The
that's
main
that's
bad guy.
that's
Yeah,
not
the main bad guy.
under the directive of Joe Biden, right? That's
Right. No, it's not like Biden. Yes. Yeah, Trump stands up there and he's like, Biden's going to call the Antifa. He's going to call him up and he's going to tell him to cut it out the first day that he's in. Which, by the way, if he had the power to do that, shouldn't we elect him then? If he has the power to control Antifa, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of the other thing, because then you look on the other side, and usually when these kinds of things happen, like maybe it's just me, guys, but usually if there's a huge pandemic going on, economic a turmoil, social unrest, the one person that you would call on to at least try to give a speech to calm people down would be the president of the United States. Usually, right? Like usually that's the person with the power of the office that can at least address the American people and try to ease anxiety. But
I mean, every time I hear him talk, I just calm down so much.
I mean, there's a whole lot of things we can discuss on the other side of what's going on in the Trump world. I don't know what you guys want to touch on first. I mean, we can touch on the fact that the president of the United States refused to condemn the Mr. Rittenhouse killing two, Kyle Rittenhouse shooting and killing two individuals in Kenosha. He went out
further. He actually said it was self-defense.
It was
right?
self-defense. Yeah, claiming it was self-defense. He asked his supporters to try to vote twice to make sure they test the system, which is a felony, of course. And then the whole point of his is that he wants to avoid election fraud.
Cheered on truckloads of his supporters who drove by protests and shot frozen paintballs and maced people up and down the streets, and he cheered them on and tweeted out like, yeah, here they go. And then later when they asked him about it, he said, well, I don't know if paint counts as violence, paintballs, and he's literally talking about people, and you could see the videos of them just shooting frozen paintballs and macing people, including reporters. They maced a New York Times reporter. And these were Trump supporters, which he supported and not condemned, a la Sister Soldier.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gus, I interrupted you.
That's okay. I was just going to say that then the last thing is just today an article came out where he, throughout the years, I suppose aides or sources within the White House have said that Donald Trump has openly insulted veterans, saying they're losers and suckers, saying that if he holds a military parade, he doesn't want any amputees there because nobody wants to see that, and saying that why would he go to John McCain's funeral? He's a fucking loser.
Yeah, didn't he say something like, "Don't lower the flags"? I hate that guy.
Yeah. I mean,
he's just so fucking petty, man. He's just so petty. People are gonna, I'm sure they'll say this is fake news, and all the conservatives will say, "Oh, it's fake news." But I mean, none of this sounds even remotely unbelievable based on his just insane personality. That he's insulted veterans on TV. Kaiser Khan, he insults John McCain on TV. So none of this is even remotely unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's just kind of funny because of two things. One, what we just mentioned, the kind of call on Joe Biden to be the one to that must swing to the moderate before the extremists take over his campaign. And two, this is right after the Republican convention, which, God bless the Republicans. They really went out of their way to very carefully filter out this false universe where the coronavirus has been defeated, the economy is okay, and Donald Trump is a decent, fair, ethical man that should continue to be president.
I mean, we all know this and deep in our hearts that he's fair.
Speaking of condemning violence, two of the most prominent speakers at the RNC were just a couple that was famous for pointing guns at people, and then they got charged with a felony, and then the RNC was like, yeah, we need to hear from these people. Real timely guests there.
Yeah, and it's just very, very baffling to me that this is.
It is. It is. You know what it is? It's normalization. We knew it was going to happen. We yelled about it in 2016. We said this both sides bullshit is going to go too far, and now it is. Trump just gets up there and just says like, "My farts are rainbows." He just says whatever he wants. He just lies, and the media does a both sides thing because they have to try to strike some sort of balance. So no matter how crazy Trump does, there's got to be a both sides. That's my opinion. It is the normalization that we're worried about.
I think you're right. It's just like it's.
Remember, for like a year, everybody went around screaming, "This is not normal," and now everybody's just like, "Yep."
It became a joke in itself. Yeah, but now it's. It's.
Can we talk about the Antifa planes and his?
Yeah, we really need to
interview?
cover that interview because this is an interview where, again, continuing his trend, Joe Biden basically dismissed all the hard work that the poor Republicans did last week during the Republican convention. That he was a sane and ethical man. I don't know if you just want to play some clips, Daniel, but I mean, this was an interview real quick where the President of the United States claimed that Joe Biden is being controlled by people that we've never heard of under the dark shadows. This is the President of the United States, just like the most laziest conspiracy theories, just saying like, yeah, people in the dark shadows, like not even making an effort to try to string these stories together, just making up false, like fake figures.
Who do you think is pulling Biden's strings? Is it former Obama
people
officials?
That you've never heard of, people that are in the dark shadows, people that...
What does that mean? That sounds like conspiracy theory. Dark shadows.
No, people that you haven't heard of. They're people that are on the streets. They're people that are controlling the streets. We had somebody get on a plane from a certain city this weekend, and in the plane, it was almost completely loaded with thugs wearing these dark uniforms, black uniforms with gear and this and that. They're on a plane.
Where's this?
I'll tell you sometime, but it's under investigation right now. But they came from a certain city, and this person was coming to the Republican National Convention, and there were like 7 people on the plane like this person, and then a lot of people were on the plane to do big damage. They were coming
planning for Washington.
Yeah, this is all happening.
All right, yeah.
All right.
What is that, guys? Like, what? What is he talking about? What is he even alluding to? Like,
he makes it seem like it's.
I think we all know that he's talking about Game of Thrones.
I think that
the White Walkers.
It's funny because he is like, "Oh, it's currently being investigated." He makes it sound like a terrorist attack. My impression is there was some Gateway Pundit article about like a dude being like, "Oh, there were like 7 people all dressed in black on my flight."
But somebody who came across that article and didn't finish it, just kind of like read the first paragraph and be like, "Oh my god, I have to get on an interview and talk about this."
That's all you need, man. One guy with like an anarchist patch and.
I mean, if it's on Fox News, Trump will say it no matter what.
I love how he implies that these guys had like gear, they had like weapons on the plane. Like they have like this secret access that lets them get this shit on a plane, and he implies there's like an investigation and shit, and it's actually pretty funny. But he, later on, people asked him about it because it was crazy, and it was no less crazy. But he admitted, I think he admitted a little more than he wanted to, because he said that this was like one person, and it's a person that you know.
That you were referring to on Fox News last night? This plot of people gathering on a plane in here?
Yeah, I could tell you that I could probably refer you to the person and they could do it. I'd like to ask that person if it was okay, but a person was on a plane, said that there were about 6 people like that person, more or less. And what happened is the entire plane filled up with the looters, the anarchists, the rioters, people that obviously were looking for trouble. and the person felt very uncomfortable on the plane. This would be a person you know, so I will see whether or not I can get that person.
So we go from this thing that's being investigated, this terrorist
So now
attack.
this person.
I mean, what does that even mean?
It's garbage.
Like,
he's just spreading
doesn't-
conspiracy theories. And it's actually pretty funny because Laura Ingraham even tries to stop him in the interview. And is like, please, like, that sounds like a conspiracy theory. Because it is a fucking conspiracy theory, lady.
Yeah, I mean that's what Laura Ingraham was trying to do the entire interview. Every time, and she knew, like, when Donald Trump was just kind of walking into very questionable territory, like saying that cops sometimes choke, and he was using the term choke as in they fall under pressure, they make a mistake under pressure, but he kept using that term, and Laura Ingraham like was trying to correct him, and then he kept back to saying like, yeah, the cop, they choke sometimes, they're just chokers, which again, it's not really a term.
He compares it to a golf putt.
Yeah,
and I think she
like
goes,
missing a golf putt is
she's
choking.
just like accidentally shooting a guy 8 times in the back.
Yeah.
Here, I have the clip.
You know, a choker, they choke. Shooting
mean
the guy,
they
shooting
can't?
the guy in the back many times. I mean, couldn't you have done something different? Couldn't you have wrestled? You know, I mean, in the meantime, he might have been going for a weapon, and, you know, there's a whole big thing there. But they choke. Just like in a golf tournament, they miss a 3-foot.
You're not comparing it to golf because, of course, that's what the media.
I'm
would say.
saying people choke.
People
People
panic.
choke.
Yeah.
And
She's like, the media is going to say you were comparing it to golf, which he was. I mean, it's kind of remarkable. You see her lying in real time about what he's actually saying, and trying to convince you that he's not actually saying it. It's pretty friggin' remarkable. But they all kind of guide him in these interviews because they know he says shit that is not popular with everybody, and you know, they want to make sure that when they clip the sort of coherent parts for their morning shows, that they're not crazy.
And even then, like, this is still what you get, like, as rehearsed as they try to make it, and as much as they try to guide him through that interview, this still comes out. And again,
there's a article in the Washington Post called "Trump's Interviews with Friendly Hosts Can Go Awry Even When They Throw Him a Lifeline," and it goes through several examples of this, him saying things and hosts being like trying to correct him. Maria Bartiromo tried to stop him from saying that he didn't want to fund the postal service so that they could send ballots to people because he didn't want people to vote. She actually tried to stop him from saying that. Hugh Hewitt, I actually have to read this because the exchange is so funny. And I was gonna play it, but they're actually talking over each other quite a bit. But as an exchange, it's actually pretty funny. Hugh Hewitt is just a absolute charlatan and propagandist. But he had Trump on his show, and he tries to make him okay for the so-called respectable Republicans. Here's the exchange. You respect the governor's power. Oh, sorry. So just the topic. He's talking about Trump sending folks in to sort of quell situations in cities without the governor's permission, which I guess shocked some of the conservative intelligentsia who pretend to care about federalism. So here, Hugh Hewitt says, "You respect the governor's power." And Trump goes, "The only reason Seattle was settled is that they knew I was going in the next day." Hewitt then said, "You're a federalist." Trump said, "And my guys were going in the next day, and that's the only reason that happened," which is a lie, by the way. And then Hewitt said again, "You believe in federalism."
yeah.
And then Trump said, "So a lot of positive things are happening, and you're a great guy and a lot of fun, and we'll do this again sometime." And that was the end of the interview.
Yeah, he was trying to put like the quote unquote right words into Donald Trump's mouth, and just basically begging him to just please say you're a federalist, and Donald Trump just like walked right past that. Yeah.
Well, because he doesn't want to do it. He would rather just ignore it completely. But
I don't think Donald Trump really understands what being a federalist is. Like, I don't think he understands that term.
That's
and again,
true. No reporter has ever asked him, "What's federalism?" Yeah, because he would not be able to answer.
So this,
Oh, he would answer it. He just wouldn't answer
it
it
would just be
correctly.
a bunch of bullshit.
so this is kind of where we're at. We're 2 months, literally 2 months. November the 3rd is going to be election day. We're September the 3rd. You see this contrast. You see this again, both sizing that Daniel mentioned. It's you do have to wonder, like, is if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. I'm not inclined to say it's not going to work or predict that it's not going to work. It's happened before. But to me, we're just reaching a theater of the absurd where we're asking Joe Biden to do the thing he's been doing his entire candidacy, and yet we're watching this Donald Trump just dissolve into madness, and we kind of just keep nodding our heads and be like, "Yep, that's our president."
I think that a lot of the same people who were really upset about how Colin Kaepernick was hurting the troops' feelings are really going to be mad at Trump for all that shit he talked about veterans. I think that is a thing that's going to happen. He's going to lose massive support. All the patriotic Americans are going to come over and vote Biden. And that's the end of that story. So
And then
I think we're good. Yeah.
Oh, guys, I want these 2 months to just be over as soon as possible. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle them. At least the debates are at the end of this
Trump's
month.
bringing back Mexico's paying for the wall. Did you guys hear that?
Oh, that's good. That's innovative.
Yeah. And I guess people are going to believe him this time or something.
Look,
I mean, they already believe him. Didn't you hear? They're already paying for the wall, man. They're already.
This is like
doing
2
it.
weeks after a couple of his advisors were arrested for trying to scam people.
All right, guys. Well, that's our little update on all the madness that's going on right now. Again, it was a bit of a strange week. Next week, we'll try to, see where the race is at and try to kind of parse the numbers. But for now, we're just waiting and hoping for the best. But this is what we're getting right now. So we're going to move on to our next subject, which we're, here at Friendly Reminder, we're 10 episodes, I believe. Is this our 10th episode? I should be keeping count.
It's our ninth.
Our ninth episode, episode 9. So we're 9 episodes deep into this project of ours. And one thing we've never really truly had an honest discussion, at least with the listeners, is where we individually stand in terms of ideology. I think it's very evident to anybody listening that we're on the left side of the ideological spectrum, at least here in America. But maybe we haven't really properly introduced ourselves and really described how we, or really how would we describe our political beliefs. So we're going to go here around the horn and just kind of briefly mention, where do we stand? Not on all the issues, but at least ideologically speaking. We're just going to basically say where we stand, and
we're going to go through the big 5 issues.
Yes.
Healthcare, songs that are kind of rapey, climate change, transportation, and the war on Christmas. Those are the top 5 issues. I'm going to go through all of them.
But Sam, tell us, how would you describe yourself? Would you say you're a leftist, a moderate, a libertarian?
I would probably say I'm a very leftist. I mean, I might even go to the radical left. I don't know, I just believe like healthcare for everyone, college for everyone, taking care of the infrastructure, which no one's doing right now. So, taxing the wealthy, all their money, they're gonna be poor now. And then we'll see who wins the war.
No war but the class war.
Yeah. I do stand with Black Lives Matter. I think it's hard for them to be peaceful protesting, mostly because, like we talked about this the previous episode, mostly because like people don't listen to them when they're peacefully protesting.
They make fun of them.
So yeah, or they say that's un-American. I want this country to be like Canada.
I think that's that radical. I mean, they're
Yeah, I wouldn't describe that as radical left. In fact, when you started listing the things, I was like, I wouldn't describe myself as radical left. I would just describe myself as like pretty left.
to put it into context, Sam. If you could pick any like prominent politician to be president right now, who would you pick?
Right now,
Yeah.
Can it be like dead, or they have to be alive?
Let's say alive for.
Just between the two, or I can pick anybody?
No, anybody.
Wait, what? Hold on. You were having trouble between Biden and Trump?
No.
Oh. Bernie Sanders.
Yeah,
Elizabeth-
probably Bernie Sanders. Even though I kind of hate him, a little bit.
Hate Bernie
Just a little
Sanders.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I just.
Why-
I mean,
Do
he's.
you want to talk about why you hate Bernie Sanders, Sam?
Well, I guess it's more to the fact that I hate his supporters, but that little bit of hate, there's like 99% hate of his supporters, which I guess I am one, so I guess I hate myself now.
You're a masochist.
He does have supporters that are very spirited.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
mean,
say that as
or-
somebody who supported him.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
that's who I am.
well, thank you for sharing, Sam. And what about you, Daniel?
You're
Like, how would you describe your?
On the issues, Sam and I are pretty close, I think. I would, if I could just sort of snap my fingers and implement everything, I would put Medicare for all, some sort of health insurance system for every single person. I would implement, I think there's a massive homelessness crisis, and I think that the only way to solve that is public housing. So I would, massive increase in public housing in all neighborhoods. Maybe that seems radical. It seems to me pragmatic solutions to all this stuff. I don't think people should be going hungry in the richest country in the world. So I think we should make sure that people have food support. And I think, unfortunately, especially in the age of COVID, hunger is actually becoming a bigger problem in the United States, which is stupid, again, because we're the richest country in the world. Let's see, what did I cover? I covered healthcare, I covered housing, I covered food as a human right, education. I think some sort of trade school or college should be free for everybody. Yeah, I mean, I guess some people would call this socialism. I would just call it sort of, I'm not opposed to capitalism in general. I mean, I think capitalism can create a lot of wealth, and then that can be used by societies for the greater good. But you can't just sort of accumulate wealth and while a lot of society just sort of flails and isn't able to even get by, especially something that's thrown into sharp relief after COVID, which is, the unemployment rate amongst hourly workers shot up, but the unemployment rate amongst professionals was barely even touched because all of them could work from home. And it's sort of, it accelerated the whole two Americas thing and made it even worse. And it doesn't seem like realistically, I like Joe Biden and I'm going to support him, of course, because Donald Trump sucks. But realistically, I don't think anything either party is promoting is even near to address, even close enough to addressing the massive problems. If I had to pick someone for president, I would probably pick Elizabeth Warren. I voted for Bernie, but I was torn a little bit. I think if Warren had done better, I probably would have voted for her if she had been doing better. In 2016, I was a little more moderate. I was a Clinton supporter. I think Trump has definitely pushed me further to the left because Well, I don't know. It was just very alienating. I guess I thought everything was sort of proceeding on an even keel, and then they elected, and then in 2015, Trump came down that stupid elevator and was just like, "I'm a giant racist," and 1 year later, they elected him president, and it made me question everything I sort of had, the way that I had learned about the United States, and made me go back and look at history with a little more of a searching eye towards the ugliness that sort of brought us to this moment. Because I don't think, like a lot of people think, that Trump is just sort of this aberration out of nowhere. I think he was the Republican Party has always had a very ugly, dark streak of nativism and a very dark populist streak. And I think it's just been embracing that more and more over the years. And I think Trump is just the culmination of that. So yeah, that has been pretty influential on my politics, because I just don't see the Democrats as sort of providing not in general, as providing a good enough ideological program to Trumpism.
Yeah.
As a sort of reaction to the sort of, but I mean, I don't think Bernie. I mean, but the question is, the next thing is, did Bernie? And no, he lost twice. Like he wasn't presenting, at least not something that people would get behind. So, maybe I'm totally wrong, and Biden's gonna sort of nice guy his way into the White House, which, yeah, I mean, I think is very possible, and the polls sort of indicate he is going to do that. But
yeah, and I mean, it could be that you're right about Biden, but it is really more for us to just kind of share where we are. But I mean, I think you make a good point talking about that, though, because in terms of like my political ideology, I almost feel like there's two versions of me. Neither is that radical, but if you're just, if I'm just trying to filter my political thoughts, I think I'm still very much, and I've consistently been, honestly, even since high school, but even in college and now, just kind of the welfare state liberal. I think there's more that we can build upon that, but not that far off from Roosevelt, FDR, in terms of just building that foundation, having a robust welfare state that provides, obviously, for the elderly, robust unemployment rate, robust health care, essentially for there to be enough of a safety net when we find ourselves in situations that we don't want to be, even if that situation is imprisonment. Like, I think there needs to be kind of prison reform, because at the end of the day, these people are still human, and we need to really rethink the way we view prisons and we view felons. But I'm not a Marxist. I'm not even sure if I would call myself a democratic socialist, even though sometimes I feel like we share the same beliefs. But I still believe in capitalism. I believe it has a function in this society, and I believe that people do benefit from that drive for further wealth. At some point, I think obviously that we reach a point where that could be excessive, and that could lead to, you mentioned this actually in a conversation we were talking about earlier today, Daniel, but a manipulation of the political system, which I think is a fair point. So I think there does need to be some control of that, but ultimately, like, capitalism as we know it, more or less, I think it can exist so long as there is that underlying welfare state that can help individuals when things don't go 100% right. In terms of like who I support or would like to support, I also found myself supporting Elizabeth Warren, even though I did ultimately vote for Bernie Sanders in the primary. I did it because I knew Warren's campaign was over at that point. I like Bernie Sanders. I also have my reservations about some of his supporters, as well as some of his really some of his promises, and not necessarily like his actual political promises, but I think the most pie in the sky thing he ever promised was saying that he was going to get things done as president through a movement, or like people were just going to come out and just force Congress and force um, both Congress, yes, both the House and the Senate to
the
pass
big Bernie
these.
line was a gigantic surge of voters, under 30 were going to show up and vote for him.
Yeah.
That same group of voters, his revolution was going to push people in Congress to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do.
So
it
like
hurts my heart to talk about it because that is not nothing like that even close to happen. And it didn't happen in 2016 and it didn't happen in 2020. And as much as you want to blame the DNC for that, you got to kind of say that maybe Bernie didn't have the popular support.
I think it was a false narrative or a false ideology or a false belief. And that's kind of where the other part of me that I was referring to, where it's just like I'm also, I guess I follow politics enough to be pretty cynical when it comes to things. And I think even if you elect somebody like Bernie Sanders, I don't think all of a sudden you are going to get Medicare for all, or you are going to get student loans canceled or anything like that. I think I'm aware that the Democratic Party, for better or for worse, is a very broad party with a large tent, and it's trying to shepherd this party through anything. It sounds like a nightmare. And I tend to be a little bit more forgiving towards somebody like Barack Obama, even sometimes Nancy Pelosi, to be honest with you, in terms of what they are able to get done or were able to get done, because it's a monumental task to try to get this very diverse and when I say diverse, I don't even mean in terms of ethnicity. I mean it like in ideologies.
Right, you have Blue Dog Democrats and you have AOC on the other side.
Yeah, I think AOC, she said, I think one of the most truthful and insightful things when she said that in any other country, her and Joe Biden would not be under the same party, but in America, they are. And yeah, that's true. And that leads me to be cynical and just kind of, at one point, at some parts cynical, some parts a little bit more empathetic, I guess, towards the Democratic leadership than most leftists tend to do, or even some liberals. So it's a struggle between those two sides. And you'll see me probably be the most like pro-Democrat here. I mean, pro-party Democrat here. And it's not always like that, but it is what it is, to quote Donald Trump.
To quote a great philosopher. I mean, look, I spent the primary being annoyed at the DNC for a lot of things. But, again, it is what it is. Yeah. Or maybe to quote another great moral philosopher, come on, man.
Come on, man.
It's the general election. We gotta get this crazy guy out of here. I'm perfectly fine with this being the neoliberal shill cast until the end of the election, because Donald Trump is just terrible.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna, I'm gonna hit Joe Biden because I think it's kind of funny to hit Joe Biden sometimes. But even if I make fun of Joe Biden, never in a million years should anybody ever take from that I'm trying to draw some sort of comparison between the two people. Trump is way worse than Biden. So
yeah, and I think like even if Elizabeth Warren were the candidate or if Bernie Sanders were the candidate, if Joe Biden wins, I'm going to have the exact same reaction if it were Elizabeth Warren winning or Bernie Sanders winning, which I'm at least going to take a few weeks to just be grateful that I did not see the end of democracy, because I know that there is this may be called Trump derangement syndrome or hyperbole or whatever you want to call it, but I am deeply afraid that if Donald Trump gets reelected, our institutions, our democracy cannot withstand another 4 years. I think the man is incredibly incompetent at most things, but he's done an exceptionally well job of pretty much demolishing our norms and institutions in a very short amount of time. And I don't want to give him more time.
If you think he's hinting that his supporters should sort of strap up and, go to the city and patrol for troublemakers, then what do you think he's going to do when he doesn't have to worry about re-election? It's going to be bad. I think.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, like I said earlier, I just wanted to end. I think most people wanted to end, or rational people wanted to end.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people that may be very different from where I am in terms of ideology and in terms of political beliefs that are going to have similar reactions if Donald Trump finally gets kicked out of the White House come November, come whenever we decide this horrible election that's about to hit us in 2 months.
In the midst of a global pandemic.
Pandemic.
No matter who wins, I'm gonna say this on Friendly Reminder because I feel safe here. But no matter who wins, I'm gonna get so drunk that I can't remember what happened the night before.
Oh yeah, no, there's
So
no
that
way
when I wake
any
up-
of us are gonna.
I'm gonna still ask who won the election.
Well, I mean, in 2016, it's the most that I've ever drank while still remembering everything. So, don't count on that, Sam. It gets scarred in your brain,
seared into your brain.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to these next 2 months, and I am glad that I have you two here with me while we embark upon these next 2 months. And I'm also glad we have our listeners here listening to us. I hope you appreciate us sharing some of our anxieties. We're going to continue to do it because, let's face it, we're all anxious here. But that does do it for our show today. So once again, I want to thank Daniel and Sam for joining me today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank our listeners for joining us today. And we'll be back next week for yet another Friendly Reminder podcast.